Right, it's 4 minutes past 8. Gareth Roberts is with us to talk about the situation at Liverpool at the moment. Gareth, it's not getting any better fast, is it?
It's not, no. It's an absolutely grim season. There's no way of painting it any differently. Really, 14 defeats now in all competitions. Obviously, on a run currently of 4 games without a win. You sort of have to take a draw, I think, away at Chelsea, which is I think what we saw Jurgen Klopp do after the game. Sort of, trying to look for positives, trying to say that's a small step in the right direction. But I think even the most rabid Reds would watch that last night and say, well, Liverpool got away with one a little bit. Obviously, the 2 goals chalked off. But Chelsea have much the better chances in the game. Obviously, there are a lot of changes to the team last night, and that's going to affect the performance. But, it's on the back of a terrible performance at Manchester City and a terrible season full stop. And I think the biggest thing for me, lads, is that, we're all looking for a turnaround here in Liverpool, certainly Reds, obviously. I've just been having a look at the results before I come on air, and all season long, the best run Liverpool have been on in all competitions is 3 wins in a row. And that came back in October. So that was Rangers, when we won 7-1 away at Rangers, beat Man City 1-0 at home, beat West Ham 1-0 at home. The following game, they lost to Nottingham Forest. And that's sort of the story of the season. To only be able to string 3 wins together in a full season is not the Liverpool we know and love. Terrible season, as I say.
It's the lack of consistency, Gareth, isn't it? Because it felt like that 7-0 win against Manchester United was a turning point in many ways. You thought, right, things are starting to click here across the course of 90 minutes. But then you have the Bournemouth game. You lose the following 3 games, albeit 2 of those are against Madrid and City. But it's just the lack of consistency generally that is the most disappointing thing.
Yeah, 100%. And there just seems to be a lot of things wrong. The mentality, the fitness levels, the lack of physicality. You're just seeing hunched shoulders and heads going down so easy, so quickly. The slow starts, the second halves, which we saw at Manchester City again. There seems to be a lot to put right, and you think about who's going to leave in the summer as well. There's going to be a lot of flux at Liverpool, a lot of change at Liverpool, not just on the pitch as well. I mean, we obviously know that the behind the scenes there are people leaving. Julian Ward, who was Michael Edwards' replacement, that's still up in the air. So Oxlade-Chamberlain, Keita, Milner, Firmino will all be leaving. There are other players that you could say Liverpool will be looking to sell based on how they perform this season. There are other players on the periphery who you wonder what their futures are. We saw Curtis Jones last night, but that's only his 3rd start in the Premier League this season. Only 8 appearances in the Premier League all told. So, what does the future hold for him? He didn't exactly pull up trees last night to suggest, he's staying around either, perhaps. So there's so much up in the air, and you look at the league table. Liverpool 8th at the moment, but Brentford playing tonight. If they get a draw, they go above Liverpool. So Liverpool then down to 9th, of course. So 7 points off 4, 10 games to go. If I'm really scrambling around for some kind of positive, it's that of those 10 games, 6 are at home, and Liverpool have been much better at home than they have away. We all know by now that that's where Liverpool's real problems are, and Liverpool have been performing as they should really at Anfield. They're the 3rd best team at home in terms of Premier League results this season, but away from home they're the 12th best team, and that shows you the real disparity how they performed in Liverpool and on the road.
Why do you think they're so inconsistent?
I mean, like I said a second ago, really, there just seems to be a lot of reasons. One thing that I was thinking again watching the Chelsea game last night is they're just so easy to play through, so easy to get through. Now, is that the midfield, which a lot of people are blaming? Is that the age of the midfield, the lack of legs in midfield, the lack of a consistent lineup in midfield? Probably. But what sort of confused me a little bit, worried me a little bit, is I kind of think if you're in a bit of a rut, which Liverpool have been many times this season and are currently in one again, shouldn't you be doing something slightly different with the setup and the tactics to say, first and foremost, lads, let's be solid. And Liverpool haven't been that. The machine is broken down, if you like. The system hasn't looked right, hasn't worked. And so then isn't it up to the coaching staff a little bit to say, let's settle for being solid first and foremost. Let's be hard to score against, hard to beat, and build from there. And yet, whatever lineup we see, particularly on the road, it just doesn't look like that. I went to Manchester City at the weekend and I didn't expect anything other than what we got, really. I was pleasantly surprised, obviously, to go 1-0 up. And I just think sometimes with them as well, that you can see the lack of confidence. I thought against City at times, we caused Man City problems. And the way we were causing them problems were feeding balls into the forwards turning, running at Manchester City, showing some confidence, showing some belief. And when they did that, City looked a little bit worried, but they didn't do that enough. Too many times the balls were safe, or they were coming back again, or they're putting themselves under pressure. So it's a huge collective mental problem, I think, now. And I don't know how you suddenly press a huge reset button in the summer, other than you now bring in significant numbers of new players. And that's what most Liverpool fans are now calling for. That's what I'm calling for too. And I suggest that's probably what Jurgen Klopp is calling for behind the scenes. I mean, he said in a press conference the other day, didn't he, that we will spend in the summer. What that spend is on and how many it's on, he wouldn't reveal. But, I think most of us Liverpool fans are saying it needs a good few now. 2 or 3 in midfield, maybe some 1 or 2 in defence too now as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done now at Liverpool, and I don't really think you can sort of say we can rely on this group again, and it's just a little sprinkle of something in the transfer market. This is major surgery now.
One of the things that's been clear is that Klopp has been, obviously a lot of managers got sacked, and so he gets asked about it and he answers the questions and he's very open about it. But he keeps saying that, like, if it wasn't for all the trophies, I would have been fired by now, or I wouldn't be around here if it wasn't for the success we've had. And look, it's a very straightforward, honest answer. It's just that I can't remember him talking before about not being at the club as like part of the answer. It's maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's a subtle enough shift in the use of language, it seems.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I think as well, we all do it, don't we? Perhaps we shouldn't, but if you look at the body language of Klopp, if you look at just him, he looks like this is getting to him, and I'm sure it is, because he's a passionate man. He's passionate about his football, and that's one of the reasons we've loved him at Liverpool all this time. He's brought success to Liverpool. He's finally broke that duck of not winning the title, and he will be forever loved at Liverpool, however the rest of his career here unfolds. But you can't help but worry. If you're putting everything down on paper, you're having a good think about it, you're looking at the results across the course of the season, you're looking at the squad, you're wondering what might happen next season, you're looking at all the other clubs who are Liverpool's potential rivals, and there are now more of them, obviously, because Newcastle are on the scene. Newcastle will spend again. There's no guarantees even next season that Liverpool are right up back in the mix, really, because Liverpool can't control what the other clubs are going to do. And again, Jurgen Klopp's an intelligent man. I'm sure he knows all that. And so what he's saying, yeah, it is a little bit depressing to hear, really, that he's saying, well, we've got to think about history, we've got to think about the past, otherwise maybe I'd be gone as well. I think you've got to say that, if we have another season like this one, the support for him will dissipate both inside the club and in terms of fans. And look, we all want to say as fans that we are right behind the manager. We love the manager. I am right behind the manager, and I do love the manager. But ultimately, Liverpool are a big club. They expect to be up there. They expect to be challenged and things. And when they don't, and when it looks like they fell off a little bit of a cliff, which they have this season, if it repeated again next season, of course the manager's job will come into question, no matter who he is.
Gareth, I was interested to see how many changes Jurgen Klopp made to the team last night, like 6 in all. I know the Van Dijk one was enforced, but Jimmy Carragher did a very interesting piece of analysis the other night in which he pointed out Andy Robertson getting pulled out of position almost by Riyad Mahrez at the weekend. Was dropping Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson a statement, do you think, by Klopp, or is that reading too much into it?
I I think it, it could have been a little bit. Maybe it is a little rocker for the pair of them. Maybe it's as simple as they're just, they're tired physically and mentally, which I would say they definitely are. I think a lot of people have been saying for a while that perhaps, even just deep down in the psyche, not some kind of cocky thing, not some kind of problem, but, perhaps there is a comfort zone for those two in that they know they're getting picked every week because they've been so brilliant for Liverpool. They've hit the levels for so long. They've been so central to Liverpool winning the trophies that I mentioned before. So, maybe, because when people say you can get comfortable because you're getting picked every week, I think people think of that as a really negative thing, like, almost, the attitude stinks and it's because he's a footballer and he's on loads of money. But just like I'm saying more deeper in the psyche, something you're almost not aware of, like, well, I'll be in next week anyway. So maybe there is a little bit of that to say, well, no, there isn't just, well, maybe next week anyway, I'm dropping you now. You're not at your level. It would enable them to have a little bit of a chat with the pair of them maybe and say, look, we need to look at your performances, how easy it was for Manchester City at the weekend and things like that. Because, you mentioned Roberts on one side, obviously Trent the other, didn't exactly cover himself with glory in that game either. And that's been a little bit of a pattern. So, yeah, I think a statement, maybe not, but just maybe an opportunity more to be able to speak to the pair of them and an opportunity for them to rest ahead of the weekend because, given the disparity in the records of home and away, like I said before, bizarrely, I think, I fancy Liverpool at the weekend. And I heard Jamie Carragher say something similar, I think, on Monday night and felt like, Gary Neville was ridiculing him a little bit. But Liverpool's record at home, as I said earlier, that backs the idea that they could potentially do something. And that is where they beat Manchester United 7-0. That is where they beat Manchester City 1-0. They've been pretty good at home. There's only sort of Leeds United, which was a terrible game back in October, and obviously Real Madrid, who've come and won this. So, I think Arsenal will fear it a little bit. Arsenal haven't had the greatest record at Anfield, and even though they're flying and going for the title, I think it'll be a tough game for them on Sunday.
The players who got dropped last night, do they all come back straight into the team given the quality of performance from their replacements wasn't at the level that it would need to be for everybody to be worried? Is it, or is the whole point of dropping them that they don't automatically get back in?
I think maybe the point was that some of them show, some of them do something, some of them, put a bit of a marker down, but I didn't think it was a great performance at all. It was a terrible watch, I thought, so for all the neutrals, I'm sure they didn't particularly enjoy that game. It was just sort of two blunt objects smashing into each other really for most of the 90 minutes. And I don't think there was anyone really there starting in the Liverpool side who you can say put in this superb performance and has now twisted the manager's arm up his back, ready for Sunday. I think it's just back to square one, picking the best side. Obviously, he's got a little bit more time now to maybe do something with them, and maybe they show a reaction as well on the training ground now, because obviously it was such a quick turnaround from City at the weekend to this game last night against Chelsea. There's almost nothing you can do there if you factor in travel and rest and stuff like that. So I think that was maybe one of the reasons for the changes as well. I think he's just looking for Liverpool to be fresh again, the first team that we expect to pretty much see, and to go at Arsenal, to be more like the Liverpool of old, to pressure Arsenal, and to make it difficult for them. And it's a late afternoon game. They tend to be good atmospheres at Anfield as well, which I will always bang the drum to say those things play a part. So yeah, I expect a different performance on Sunday from Liverpool to what we saw last night and what we saw last weekend.
Are we entering a situation now where in the summer there's nobody that could be sold, where the Liverpool fans will be like, oh, you can't do that? So if Salah gets sold, if Virgil gets sold, maybe Alisson might be the only one who everybody will be like, hang on a second, what are you doing here? But other than that, it feels like there's a window of opportunity here for everybody to be sold, and Liverpool fans will be like, well, we just have to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the opportunity to go a little bit left field with it is certainly there, and yeah, you make a valid point. I mean, I don't think people would be happy to see Salah go. Obviously he still managed to score a significant number of goals this season, albeit that he's not quite hitting the levels we've seen him hit in the past, but that's probably more down to the collective than the individual. But, the surgery is such that is needed, like I mentioned before, that, if a huge offer came in for Salah, and he's 30 years old, let's remember, then maybe there is an argument there to say, well, this is how we're going to get back to where we were. This is how we're going to hit those levels again. And obviously Liverpool did something similar with Coutinho, went and reinvested that money, and then that that led to a period that Liverpool fans will look lovingly at for a long time. So I think there's no player really, apart from the ones that have come in. Obviously, the likes of Núñez, Diaz, Gakpo, the likes of those players. Obviously, that is the next Liverpool. I mean, people keep saying about a rebuild. A rebuild is already happening. There are already players in that will be part of Liverpool Mark II under Klopp, if you like. But even players, you mentioned Salah. I mean, you look at Fabinho. To suggest even a year or so ago that he could be someone that could leave, I think you'd be ridiculed for it. But now I think most Liverpool fans would say, well, based on his performances, based out on how far the drop-off appears to have been with him this season, you wouldn't bank against him, leaving in the summer as well.
When you think about Liverpool challenging on four fronts last year, Gareth, compared to this, how much of that rests on the doorstep of FSG? Because there's all this talk now that they're going to really, really back Klopp this summer and invest heavily in the squad. Is it almost too little too late? Because clearly this season so much was expected and so little was delivered. Like, how much rests on the owners?
Yeah, plenty. I think, I mentioned before that, Klopp's an intelligent man, and the owners are intelligent people too. And, the idea that you couldn't sort of see some of this coming. I mean, Liverpool fans have been banging the drum for midfielders, for a long, long time. There's been no investment in midfield for a significant amount of time now. It's a similar situation really to, the COVID season where, Liverpool are doing a bit of a supermarket sweep to try and get a defender in. Liverpool were doing the same again, getting Artur in. Now, I don't know how bad he is in training, but he's not getting anywhere near the team. He's on the bench again last night. It's clear that he's not hit any kind of level. He's not proved to be any use. He's been injured as well. And his injury record suggested that could happen. So again, they've gone and got someone in that they probably didn't really want, that wasn't really on any lists. So why didn't they get someone in that was on a list? I think there's been plenty of hints, some things Klopp said publicly that, he's not happy about that. I worry as well about, a little bit of a brain drain in terms of Edwards leaving. And then, why is Ward looking to go so soon? He's been linked with a number of jobs, and it could be as simple as that. But could it just be, the bailing out while the going's good, if you like, because they can see what's coming in the post? I don't understand the lack of investment in the team. I would think you should be looking to invest from a position of strength. What they've done now and the way it's been left is they made it more difficult for everyone involved. So, okay, invest in the summer, but as plenty of people are pointing out, if you finished 8th or 9th in the league, the sell isn't quite as good as if you're in the Champions League, obviously. Now, it's still Liverpool Football Club, and it's not going to collapse overnight, and it still has the record it has, the history it has, the manager it's got, the fans, all of those, appeal points, if you like. It's going to be a bigger stadium soon as well to make that atmosphere even better. But I'm sure there will be players and agents out there who'll just say, well, that's not right for you. And the other problem is maybe that, if the players we've got there that we would like to keep, because you mentioned, who wouldn't you sell? Is there a possibility that players start knocking at the door now of Klopp and saying, what is the plan?
Yeah.
Because what is the plan? How do we get back up there now? Because the plan doesn't look that great now, does it? And so unless, we've got everything, we've all got everything crossed. We're all praying that there is something in the Bellingham links. But equally, it's easy to sell a story where you think, well, why would he come?
Yeah.
Given what the other offers are likely to be for him.
We've got to leave it there.
We're all waiting to see for the summer, aren't we?
Gareth, good stuff. Great to have you with us again. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.
That's Gareth Roberts, our Liverpool podcaster. OTB